Now, I want to tell you something about light. Not the comfortable version of it, the one where you flip a switch and a warm little river of brightness pours out and bounces around your kitchen. No, I want to tell you what light actually is, and what it does, and what it experiences, if you can even use a word like that, which you cannot, and that is precisely the point. You see, most people carry around this picture in their heads where light is like a very fast little ball, or sometimes they think of it as a wave, like if you drop a pebble in a pond and the ripples spread out. Those are reasonable pictures, and they are also completely, catastrophically wrong when you push them hard enough. And I love pushing things hard enough, because that is when physics stops being comfortable and starts being honest. Here is the honest thing. Light does not experience time, not a slowed down version of time, not a compressed, abbreviated version of time. Zero. None. Not a single vibration of a cesium atom, not a single tick of any clock you could ever build, not a single heartbeat of the universe. From the perspective of a single photon, the entire journey, from the moment it was born inside the nuclear furnace of a star, 8 billion light years away, to the moment it crashes into your retina on a Tuesday afternoon, that entire journey takes no time whatsoever. The beginning and the end are the same moment, separated by nothing. Now let me give you an image to hold on to, because the mathematics alone can be cold and slippery. Imagine a frozen city, an enormous dark grid of streets and buildings and clocks, and all the clocks have stopped. Every pendulum is hanging perfectly still. Every digital display is locked on the same number. Every person on every corner is frozen mid-step, mid-breath, mid-blink. And through this stopped city walks a single messenger. Timeless, silent, moving at the absolute fastest speed that anything in this universe is permitted to move. For you, standing frozen on your corner, watching this messenger cross the entire dark grid of the cosmos, it takes 13 billion years. You can calculate it. 13 billion years times the speed of light gives you the distance, and the distance divided by the speed gives you the time, and that time is vast and cold and almost incomprehensible. But for the messenger, the city is not 13 billion light years wide. The city has mathematically collapsed. The distance between departure and arrival is zero. The moment the messenger steps off the dying star and the moment the messenger arrives at your eye are not separated by any duration at all. They are the same moment, squeezed together by the physics of moving at the universal speed limit, until all the space between them crumples into nothing. That is not poetry. That is Lorentz contraction, and it is ruthlessly, unflinchingly real. Here is how the mathematics works, and I am going to be very simple and very precise about it. Einstein showed us that when you move fast, time slows down for you relative to someone standing still. This is not an illusion. It is not a perceptual trick. Your clock actually runs slower. Your atoms actually vibrate less frequently. Your biological processes actually take longer from the outside observer's perspective. Now you ask, well, how slow does the clock get if you go faster and faster? And the answer from the equations of special relativity is that the slower and slower and slower the clock runs, approaching a complete and total stop as your speed approaches the speed of light. And if you could actually reach the speed of light, your clock would be stopped. Completely, mathematically, not approximately stopped. Stopped. Light moves at the speed of light. That is what light does. It has no mass, which means it is not restrained by the energy cost of accelerating a massive object. It is born moving at the speed of light, and it moves at the speed of light forever until it hits something. And because it moves at the speed of light, its internal clock reads zero from start to finish. The ancient ultraviolet light arriving at our telescopes from the early universe, that light that set off before the Earth existed, before the sun ignited, before this entire corner of the galaxy had taken its current shape, that light is not old. It has not aged. It is, in the strangest physical sense, the same age as a photon that was produced in the lamp behind me 3 seconds ago. Both of them have experienced 0 seconds of duration. Light is a permanent, ageless fossil of the moment it was created, carrying that moment frozen inside it across whatever distance it travels and depositing it, completely intact, into your eye or your detector or your solar panel. But the frozen clock is only the first strange fact, because it turns out that the path the photon takes, that is also not what you think. When I was young and learning physics, I thought that a particle moving from here to there traveled, from here to there, in a line, the most efficient route, the sensible commuter's path. And then you learn quantum mechanics and you discover that the photon does not travel from here to there. It travels from here to everywhere simultaneously and then arrives at there. This is the principle of path integrals, developed with extraordinary precision by a man I had the fortune of knowing and whose thinking I find irresistibly elegant. The idea is this. You do not compute what path the photon takes by imagining a classical little ball rolling along a track. You compute the probability of the photon arriving somewhere by summing up every single conceivable path the photon could possibly have taken, every curved path, every ridiculous zigzag, every route that swings out past Jupiter and comes back around, every geometrically absurd loop. You add all of these paths together with their appropriate quantum phases, and most of them cancel each other out because they are out of phase with their neighbors. But near the path of least time, the phases reinforce each other. They add up constructively. And so, what emerges from this infinite smeared sum of every possible trajectory is the behavior we observe. Something that looks like a beam, something that looks like a ray, something that looks like the photon knew where it was going. But it did not know where it was going. It went everywhere. The straight line is what you get after you let all the impossible paths interfere with and cancel out each other. And what is left is the shape of possibility concentrated along the efficient route. This is why light bends around massive objects. When a star sits between us and a distant galaxy, the photon does not decide to take a curved path. Rather, the sum of all paths, recalculated in the curved geometry near that massive object, concentrates probability along a different set of routes than it would in flat, empty space. Gravity does not grab the photon and yank it sideways. Gravity reshapes the landscape of possibilities, and the photon, in its strange quantum accounting of every path simultaneously, responds to that reshaping automatically, inevitably. There is no little bright ball making navigational decisions. There is a smear of quantum probability across all of spacetime, and what you see when you put a detector at the end is the concentrated residue of that infinite smear collapsed into a single event of energy transfer. And now for the third strange fact, which is about the nature of space itself. People think that a photon travels through empty space, and I understand why they think this, because space looks empty. You go outside on a clear night and you look up, and between you and the stars there appears to be nothing, a vast, dark, featureless nothing. But that is not what the physics says is there. What is actually there is a field, the electromagnetic field, continuous, connected, alive with fluctuation. This field is not something separate from light. Light is a disturbance in this field, a ripple, an oscillating structure of electric and magnetic influence propagating outward because that is what such a disturbance does in a relativistic field theory. The photon is not a tiny object riding through a neutral, passive medium. The photon is the medium itself, doing something. And the medium is never quiet. Quantum field theory tells us that even in the lowest energy state of the electromagnetic field, the state we would naively call the vacuum, the state where there are no photons at all, there is still energy. The field is never completely still. It fluctuates permanently because of the uncertainty principle applied to the field itself. These fluctuations produce pairs of virtual particles that appear and vanish in intervals too brief to measure directly, borrowing energy from the vacuum and returning it before the universe can notice, living brief, non-classical lives in the spaces between real events. This is not a minor correction. This vacuum energy is physically real and measurable. It produces the Casimir effect, where two uncharged metal plates placed very close together in what we would call empty space are pushed toward each other by the pressure difference between the boiling vacuum outside and the suppressed vacuum between them. The vacuum pushes, the nothing presses. The empty space has structure and energy and mechanical consequences. So, the photon is not traveling through nothing. It is a propagating excitation of a field that is connected to every charged particle in the universe. And the space it crosses is not passive or neutral, but churning with the invisible energetic life of a quantum field in its ground state. And here's what I find genuinely extraordinary about all of this, not in a hand-waving way, but in a specific physical way. All three of these facts, the stopped clock, the smeared path, the boiling vacuum, they are not independent, strange accidents of nature. They are tied together by the mathematics of quantum electrodynamics into a single, coherent, calculable, testable framework. And that framework makes predictions that agree with experimental measurement to more decimal places than almost any other physical theory humans have ever constructed. The electron-magnetic moment, for instance, calculated from QED and measured in the laboratory, agrees to better than 1 part in a billion, not approximately, not roughly, precisely. When physics works this well, when the mathematics of a stopped clock and a smeared path and a boiling vacuum all collapse together into a number that matches what we measure to 1 part in a billion, that is not an accident. That is the machinery of reality being legible to us, temporarily, if we ask the right questions in the right mathematical language. I do not find any of this frightening or cold. I find it extraordinary. The universe is not obligated to be comprehensible to us. It is under no physical constraint to arrange itself so that the creatures living on this small rock can look out at the sky and understand, even partially, what the light crossing that sky is doing. But it turns out we can. Not completely, not finally, but meaningfully. We can write down the mathematics of a photon that experiences no time and predicts with extraordinary accuracy what that photon will do when it encounters matter, or another field, or a curved region of spacetime. And I think the honest, physical truth about light, the stopped clock, the smeared path, the churning vacuum, is not something that makes our experience of a sunset less beautiful. It makes the sunset strange in a way that is far more interesting than the comfortable version, because the light hitting your eye right now is not old. It has not traveled. From its perspective, it was created and received in the same instant, and that instant contains an entire frozen record of the moment and the place of its origin, carried perfectly intact across a universe of curved space-time and boiling emptiness, deposited into the machinery of your visual cortex, and turned into color. That is what actually happens when you see something.